Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Coaches Corner podcast. I am joined with Owen,
Yo, yo, yo.
and we're going to be talking about some F1. We've had the Azerbaijan Grand Prix on the weekend. Was it Azerbaijan?
No,
Baku?
it was Abu Dhabi, I'm pretty sure.
No, Abu Dhabi was last year.
It was Jeddah.
It's at the end of the season. Anyway, well, we have got some banners. I'm just going to wait for more people to join, see if they do. Owen, would you like to introduce yourself to everybody?
Not particularly, but
You'll just wait to see if anyone else joins.
yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Saudi Arabia because it was Jeddah.
What's that?
The Grand Prix was in Saudi Arabia, remember?
Saudi Arabia, that's it. I think
it's Jeddah.
Yeah. I just get confused, We've got so much writing on here to do. But anyway, did you watch the Grand Prix on the weekend?
Oh. Something I don't get though is the fact that Verstappen went from 15th all the way up to second and put a 16-second gap in between him and Fernando Alonso.
Yes, that car is just unbelievable.
But then again, Aston Martin has upgraded their car since last season because Aston Martin went from a late backfield.
Well, they started last season at the back.
Yeah, and they shot all the way up to podium positions.
Yeah, that's of course because they've signed their new technical director, who was partners to Adrian Newey at Red Bull, who designs the Red Bull cars. He's obviously been practicing a couple of years. Adrian Newey is obviously the best technical director. Red Bull technical director. He's created probably the best cars. Started obviously at Williams, went to McLaren, joined Red Bull, and he's up there. James Allison, who we're going to be talking about in this podcast. But anyway, Mercedes, Saudi Arabia. I think that was a pretty good weekend for Mercedes. What do you think?
They could have done slightly better, in my opinion, because with Hamilton not even halfway through getting a checkered flag for weaving on Australia, I think they could have done better with that. Because if Hamilton did it again, obviously he would have got disqualified for it, leaving Russell to quite literally carry the entire Mercedes team. But apart from that, I think they did quite well. All they had to do was get past Fernando Alonso and Mercedes would have been thingy.
Yeah. I also just want to say that Owen is an Aston Martin fan.
And McLaren.
Any Mercedes love in there?
No.
Williams? No? Okay.
No. Oh, wait, no, ignore me. Wait, no. Hamilton would have had to go past Sainz and Fernando Alonso in order to get to podium position.
Yeah. Anyway, Mercedes did beat Ferrari. Did you think the Ferrari's car was terrible? Was it just the track, or is their car worse than Mercedes, Aston Martin? Are they fourth, Mercedes fourth, or are they best than the Astons? What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, with Ferrari, it's sort of all up in the air because obviously during the Grand Prix, you had Hamilton and Russell separating. What was I saying? Hamilton, Russell, and Stroll separating Leclerc and Sainz. So they were kind of separated between it, but
of course Leclerc had the penalty.
Driver.
All right, anyway, I think we should get into the first question. Okay, so first up, should Hamilton leave Mercedes and where should he go?
That's a tough one.
Of course, he's been at the team now for 10 years.
Yeah.
Came from McLaren. Before he had won the World Championship, he's added 6 to his collection. Should have been 7th. We can argue that. Abu Dhabi 2021. We all know what happened there. Should have been 8th. Should have beat Schumacher's record. Yep, should have beat Schumacher's record. And should he leave Mercedes? I think last 2 years Mercedes has delivered Hamilton a very poor car. Mercedes' car is not a race-winning car. Considering Aston Martin share 50% or buy 50% of the parts from Mercedes, and Aston Martin have produced a much quicker car, just shows how much behind Mercedes are. You could say that Mercedes have lost lots of key people to the team. Obviously, they lost James Vowles. He went to Williams to become the team principal. Yeah, no, they didn't really lose James Allison. He went to go work on a boat for one of their sponsors. But I want to get your take on this. And the second part of the question, where should he go?
Well, I mean, with you saying that Mercedes has half of the parts that they give to Aston Martin, the only reason why Aston Martin's quicker is because of the wind tunnel that they put on the front of the car. That
Mercedes
gives
are very
downforce in order for them to speed up and use friction.
Yeah.
But if Hamilton was to leave Mercedes, to be fair, I think he'd go back to McLaren, or he might go up to Red Bull to replace Perez.
We've seen Christian Horner talk today, the Red Bull team principal, and saying that there is no space for Hamilton at Red Bull, but he would never rule it off. What do you make of that?
I mean, because he said that they'd never rule it off, suggests that further along the line, for example, if Verstappen or Perez gets into a freak accident and heaven forbid dies, Hamilton might replace them, but then there's always that issue of who's going to replace Hamilton.
Well, they've obviously got Michael Schumacher, Mick Schumacher, as their reserve driver at the moment. Lando at McLaren, but I never see Hamilton. I could see Toto Wolff obviously saying that Hamilton could leave because their car is really, really crap, and I could never see Hamilton going to a Red Bull, considering what's happened in the past and the rivalries and what he said. I could see him going to a Ferrari or an Aston Martin. Would you have Hamilton at Aston Martin? Replace Fernando Alonso or Stroll? I don't think that's ever going to happen.
Fernando Alonso, no. But I can see that happening because he is in his 40s now. He's the oldest.
43.
He's what? I
43.
Yeah, 40s. I thought you said 53 there.
Yeah, 43. Right, anyway, talking about Fernando Alonso, let's get into the next question. And I want to specifically ask you, because you are an Aston fan, can Fernando Alonso win a race this season?
No, I do not think he can, purely because of how fast Red Bull's cars are. If Red Bull's cars weren't as fast, yeah, he could. But the thing that makes me doubt it is the fact that he's got 16 seconds between him and Verstappen. He could not do 15 seconds. Even with
what about Sergio Perez retires from the race? Verstappen retires from the race. It's between him, Russell, Hamilton, and Charles Leclerc. Who wins?
Oh, I think Fernando Alonso would win.
Yeah.
I can wind tunnel.
Yeah, I could definitely see Fernando Alonso winning a race, but I think it would take something for like the Red Bulls to retire or the car to, lose power. I think something like that would happen, but I definitely think Fernando Alonso could win a race. Anyway, let's get into the next question. Will Hamilton or Russell win a race this season?
To be fair, that all depends on who gets the quicker time in qualifying.
We have upgrade 6 in Imola, where the Mercedes get a new upgrade on their car. Will that make a difference?
It might make a 1 or 2 place difference because at the end of the race, there wasn't that much time between Alonso, Sainz, and Hamilton.
Yeah.
So it might make them Hamilton jump into third, but Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton will be very close and fighting for third. So.
Yeah. I think we saw at Brazil, Sao Paulo last year where Russell won the race. I think if the upgrade goes well, Imola at race 6, I certainly believe that they could win the race. We saw it last year to the end of the year. The Mercedes car was really, really good. Still wasn't as good as the Red Bulls, maybe just on par with the Ferraris. But anyway, I want to go into our next question. We've talked about how good Verstappen is, but can Perez fight for the title this season?
I think he has it in him.
You think that he has it?
Because Perez is always told to give way to Verstappen.
Yeah.
Because Verstappen's obviously meant to be this big Red Bull icon that always wins every race.
Yeah.
If Perez ignored the request, like Verstappen often does to him.
Yeah, like he did last season.
Yeah. Am I right in saying that last season he said, "Don't ask me that again, I'm not going to do it"?
Sao Paulo.
Yeah. If Perez ignores the request, I think he could make it.
Yeah.
Okay. But all depends.
Yep. Okay. I think that's the first part of the podcast done. Me and Owen are going to take a break now, but we will be back at 6:50. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Owen, are you here?
Yep.
Okay. Right. Where do we leave off?
We left off where we were. Yeah.
Okay. So let's go into the next question. Are Williams improving? Well, so last couple of years, 2019 was obviously their low year, where they were last on the grid, had the worst car. They couldn't even afford to show up for the first 2 days of testing in Spain. So are Williams improving?
Well,
They seem to do quite well. Sargent, the American, obviously they got it wrong in Bahrain. They said Canadian flag, but I think they're doing pretty well.
Yeah, I mean they are slightly improving because they've gone from, what did you say, bottom of the grid, so like 19th
yeah.
and
So
20th.
2019, that was the rock bottom year.
Yeah,
couldn't get any worse.
They've jumped up a few places to 16th and 13th, which, in my opinion, is quite an improvement.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. What do you think of Alex Albon? Do you think that he should deserve, if he performs well, should he deserve a seat, or should he just have a seat anyway if he just does average?
I'm honestly not sure, to be fair.
I think Alex Albon is happy at Williams. I think Williams are happy to have Alex Albon. I don't see him being replaced anytime soon. What do you think of Logan Sargent? Do you think he seems pretty good?
I mean, compared to Albon, he very well might get replaced because although there's a three place difference, Alex Albon was the one who got Williams. Although it's 1 point, they still got Williams a point.
Yeah.
Whereas Thingy didn't. So I think
it's quite hard to get a point in that Williams car.
Yeah.
Obviously, when they did the car reveal, Alex Albon even says it looks faster than what they've had. I think Williams are doing brilliantly. Obviously, they've got James Vowles, the Mercedes head of strategy, who they said could have been the Mercedes team principal. He looks very, very promising. Obviously, an English lad, so we'll be happy about that. Claire Williams left 2 years ago. They look like they're going forward. I think they're doing really, really well. Do you ever see Williams coming back to what they were in the 90s, a top dominant top team in, say, 2026 when the new regulations change?
Yeah, I think that would shock most people, to be fair, because to be fair, as far as I've always known Williams to be a bottom grid team, but if they shot up to like 6th and 5th and 7th, that would be a massive improvement. The team would have to.
They are the 3rd oldest team, and I do get funding for that.
Yeah, the team would have to work a lot, and I mean a lot, in order to get the car to that capability.
Yeah. Well, considering how rock bottom they were a couple of years ago, everybody thought that Williams were going to be no longer. The financial situation was really, really bad. I think back staff have done really, really well to keep the team going. Obviously, they've been bought. Claire Williams sold the team in 2020 to, I don't know who it was, but the whole management team changed. They changed again in the summer. James Vowles. What do you think about that? Oh, obviously, of course, he was the old strategy head of strategy at Mercedes. He very known in F1 paddock. They said that he could have overtook Toto to get the team principal, and he's now become the Williams team principal. I want to know what you think of that.
Well, I mean, because he was part of a team that was often always higher up in the grid, I think that Williams has now got a lot of potential to shoot up the grid, like you said, for example, in 2026.
Do you think that Mercedes will impact on losing James Vowles?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. I think we should move on to the next question.
Just before you do, I've figured out who it was sold to. It was sold to a company called Dorilton Capital for £135 million.
Yeah.
Oh,
2020. from Claire Williams.
Mm.
Anyway, all right. How can Mercedes improve their car? Of course, last season they went for the concept of the zero pod. It hasn't worked. Mike Elliott, obviously, the person who signed off the documents for the last two Mercedes cars and all the upgrades from last year. But it's nice to see that we've got James Allison back. We're going to be talking about him in another question. I'm not going to talk about James Allison at the moment, but do you think that Mercedes should go back to the side pod concept, or do you think they should stick to the no side pod concept and see where it takes them into next season? If it doesn't work, do you think they should drop it?
Well, I think they should obviously stick with the thing that that gives them the most, potential with it. But the thing I think they should add is they should take some ideas from other teams. For example, with Aston Martin shooting up the ranks with the wind tunnel, if Mercedes added a wind tunnel into their design, I think they would shoot up into first and second again.
Yeah, but the problem we've got with the side pod, if you change the side pod, you've got to change the whole car. And this is why I think Imola the first upgrade, race 6 for Mercedes is so key to get it right. We don't know, the order could change. We could see Mercedes battling the Red Bulls, which, I mean, Red Bulls are a second a lap quicker. That is just crazy. I saw Mercedes got lapped last year. It wasn't quite nice to see that. Do you think that Mercedes could challenge the Red Bulls after the upgrade?
I mean, it all depends on what happens with the upgrade. I mean, depends if they get it right or not, because if they don't get it right and Mercedes drops down, then I think Mercedes will do horrible and they will lose most of their reputation.
Yep. Do you think we could ever see a Hamilton Verstappen 2021 again?
I mean, we might be able to.
I believe if they're both given good cars, we could definitely see something like that happen again.
Yeah, definitely.
I'd love to see a big battle, because last season it was just Verstappen, really, wasn't it? There was Charles Leclerc could have challenged if the Ferrari teams went people who organised the pit stops weren't complete idiots. Matteo Binotto, obviously, replaced by Frederic Vasseur. What do you think about Frederic Vasseur, the new Ferrari? How do you think the last two races have been for Ferrari after getting rid of Matteo Binotto?
I mean, I've only recently just started rewatching F1, but from what I can gather, Ferrari has done a considerable amount better.
Yeah, well, they did finish behind the Mercedes on the weekend, which wasn't great. But could that just be down to Saudi Arabia being a track where there's not many straights and not enough play?
Because Saudi Arabia is a really hard
track.
It's
a very hard track. It's the fastest street circuit. It's faster than Monaco.
Yeah, but I mean, if it was on something like Silverstone, they would easily have passed the Mercedes.
Yeah, fast track. I remember seeing Verstappen versus Hamilton, where Verstappen crashed into the barriers at 51 G-force, which sent him into hospital. Have you ever seen that? Owen? Oh, I think we might have lost him. Anyway, I'm going to go into the next question. What has happened to McLaren? I hope we get back to Owen. I think he might have just gone somewhere. But we need to talk about McLaren. Of course, Bahrain went terribly for them. They had Oscar Piastri retiring lap 9. And then Lando Norris... Lando Norris went in for the pits. I think it was about 5 times he must have pitted, and then he ended up retiring. Hope we get Owen back soon so I can ask him more questions. But it's not looking very good for McLaren. The car looks terrible. Do I think they're going to finish last? No, I don't. I really hope for the best for McLaren. I'm not a McLaren supporter. I am a Mercedes. I know Owen likes McLaren, as he said, likes Aston McLaren. Of course, Aston being a Silverstone-based team. The situation now for Lando Norris. He's stuck in a bad situation because, of course, 2 years ago he was talking to Red Bull, and then he signed that long contract with McLaren because he obviously believes in the McLaren project. But I don't think I think that he'd probably be begging for teams like Mercedes or Red Bull, Ferrari, Aston Martin now in the conversations for a top spot move. I'd like to ask him a question when he comes back, hopefully. Lando does need a good car because we need to see how good he actually is when he can compete against the likes of George Russell, who was at Williams at the time. The McLaren car was actually, I say, worthy of challenging. But I know Owen hasn't come back yet, so I'm just going to move into the next question. We're going to move back to the question. Some big news recently. Excuse me. Is James Allison a key member of the Mercedes back team? Of course, he has signed the upgrade at Imola, and the Imola upgrade is going to be by him. James Allison obviously went to go work with the boat for the... I can't remember what the sponsor was called, but it was a Mercedes sponsor. And yeah, it was... I don't want to say it because I don't want to pronounce it. But it's nice to see him back. We've had Mike Elliott. I know he has been working on the car. I think Owen's come back. Owen?
Yo. I'm back. Sorry about that.
Okay. I'm going to go back to the question. This one. I wanted to ask you more about it. So, do you think that Mercedes should just chuck a side pod on the car?
I mean, potentially. Depends how good
make them faster.
Yeah.
And that's what Lewis Hamilton wants. Because Lewis Hamilton said that he feels like people aren't listening to him in the team.
Well, no offense, he's just a driver. He has no power over the team.
Well, I mean, it's Lewis Hamilton. He's been there for 10 years.
And that doesn't give him any more power. If an office worker has been there for, 30 years, does it give him any more power over the boss? No. In my opinion,
we've talked about that anyway. Yeah. Right. So moving on to a team that you say you follow and like, what has happened to McLaren? Can you answer that for me?
Yes. What happened was, basically with McLaren, I think it was either Norris's. It was Lando Norris's car. He got hit, and a piece of debris flew off and hit his teammate, and that's what happened. Because it knocked both their front wings off, meaning they had to pit early.
In 2020, and we could say 2019, we could see them challenging for top 3. Carlos Sainz, Lando Norris. 2020, we saw them beat Ferrari in 2020. Well, it was a very good performance by McLaren. The car was brilliant. 2021, we, of course, Adrian Newey wasn't McLaren. 2021, we... what was I going to say? They finished 4th in the championship. Then 2022, the car was terrible last season. They dropped. I can't remember where they finished. And this season it looks even worse for them. They look like they might have dropped behind Williams because they're last in the constructors. McLaren at the moment, they've got no points. Oscar Piastri looks very promising. What have you got to say about Oscar Piastri?
Well, I mean, obviously nothing will ever beat the iconic Daniel Ricciardo, but I think that he's definitely got some potential in him. This is his first Grand Prix, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Then we're not entirely sure what his potential is.
Yeah.
And
I think he's a good driver from what we've seen, especially in the qualifying.
Yeah, because I mean he managed to obviously not get as much damage as what would have happened if the debris full on hit him.
Yeah.
Which I think requires a lot of skill.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what's going on with McLaren at the moment. It seems like whenever they have a bad season, they just write it off and go again next year. But what I've seen with Mercedes is when they have a bad season, they don't write it off. They challenge towards the end. Do you have anything to say on that? Do you think McLaren give up too easily?
Oh, no, I don't think they gave up too easily, because if they gave up too easily, Norris and Piastri would have just retired. They wouldn't have gone in and continued the race. I think that the reason why they're in 19th and 20th is solely for the reason that there was debris on the track and it hit them both.
Yeah, I don't know if you were listening 2 minutes ago, but I said that Lando Norris in 2020 had the chance, or 2021, I believe, to go to he was talking to Red Bull because at the time his contract was running out. Instead, he's decided to go with McLaren and sign a long-term contract. Do you believe that maybe he should have looked at that contract a bit more from Red Bull and maybe gone, oh, maybe I should go there?
I mean, I think he should have chosen Red Bull in some aspects.
Yeah. He obviously believed in the McLaren project.
But
if I was him, I would have definitely gone for that Red Bull. But obviously, he probably didn't know how dominant they were going to be. I don't know if Red Bull 100% wanted him, because obviously they've Sergio Perez. Come on, he is a good driver. Let's not forget that.
He definitely is. But I think that if he went Red Bull, it would have got his name out there more.
Can't imagine if Lando Norris went Red Bull. That would be brilliant.
Yeah, because you would see in like the news and stuff, F1 Red Bull driver Lando Norris wins first world championship in.
It'd be nice to see Lando in a really quick car chasing, obviously, Verstappen, maybe challenging for Mercedes and Ferrari. I've always wanted to see Lando in a very fast car challenging the top teams. Anyway, let's go into our last question. It's regarding James Allison. Is James Allison a key member of Mercedes' back team? Obviously, he went away he didn't really go away. He was partly still Mercedes, but he's spending more time at a boat, which was designing a boat for one of the sponsors for Mercedes' car. He was responsible for building years of success. He was the hybrid era. He made the W11, which is regarded as the fastest car ever in Formula One. Is it good to see him back? Because he's obviously his name is on the upgrade for the Imola upgrade Mercedes race 6 upgrade. Do you think this is good for Mercedes?
I mean, if he did create the W11, which he said he did, I think that obviously history always repeats itself, and it might repeat itself again sooner. So if he stays with Mercedes could have a massive spurt of energy and climb back up the ranks again and be like to Verstappen what he did to Alonso, where it was 16 seconds in between them.
Yeah. Well, of course, Red Bull have Adrian Newey. James Allison, do you think that he's the same as the Red Bulls? Do you think that he can produce the same as what Adrian Newey did with Red Bull?
Ooh, that's difficult.
I mean, personally, I think Adrian Newey is the best technical player, person of the car. I mean, he's been in the sport for years. Started off at Williams and then went to McLaren, which I've already said. But going back to the question, is James Allison a key member of the back team? Of course he is. Mercedes last 2-3 years have lost so many of the back team. Keeping anyone is going to be very, very crucial for them. And he is responsible for the W11, which is regarded as the fastest F1 car. Which was an absolute animal. And in the constructors, they got a 1-2 with Valtteri Bottas, obviously, when he was at Mercedes. We haven't really talked about Alfa Romeo or any other midfield teams. Who do you think is going to win that midfield battle out of Alfa Romeo, Alpine? Looks like maybe Williams might be in the midfield. Of course, McLaren and all of them midfield teams. Who do you think is going to come out on top?
Well, I mean,
of course, last season it was McLaren versus Alpine. Maybe Alfa Romeo could be in a shout. But personally, I think McLaren are far, far behind the midfield at the moment. And the Alpine car looks pretty good. Would you say? Okay, I think we've lost him again. I think we're going to end the podcast now because we've answered all the questions that we need to. I know Owen can't say bye, but I'll say bye for him. I want to thank you all for watching the podcast. If you're watching it a couple of days later, if you're watching it live. And we'll see you next Thursday. Thank you very much.